Red eye looks simple until a patient sits in front of you and you wonder, is it a conjunctivitis, uveitis, or something else? In this video, I'll show you just 3 points that let you diagnose conjunctivitis and its types at first look. So let's get started. We shall be dividing this video in 3 parts. First will be concept, second will be OPD points to remember, and third is the self-assessment at the end of this video. Now, first point to diagnose conjunctivitis is what is the distribution of redness, whether it is involving palpebral conjunctiva or bulbar conjunctiva around the cornea, that is circumcorneal congestion. To know this, first we should know what is palpebral conjunctiva, what is bulbar conjunctiva. So, conjunctiva is a transparent membrane that arises from the inner margin of the lid to extend till the limbus, and the conjunctival part, which is covering lids, that is palpebra, is called palpebral conjunctiva. The conjunctiva which is covering the bulbi, that means eyeball, is called bulbar conjunctiva. And in between that, what is this arc like thing is there? That conjunctiva is called forniceal conjunctiva. Now we will be having question that in conjunctivitis, all the three parts should get inflamed because they are the part of conjunctiva. Then why palpebral conjunctiva is affecting more? Why not all the parts? So for that, we should understand the vessel anatomy and its distribution. Palpebral conjunctiva has conjunctival vessels which are numerous in number and are superficial. So they affected more in superficial inflammation like conjunctivitis. While circumcorneal or bulbar conjunctival vessels have anterior ciliary vessels, fewer in number and are deeply located. So they affected more in deep inflammation like keratitis, uveitis, and angle closure glaucoma. So these lead us to the first important differentiating feature, that is the distribution of congestion. In conjunctivitis, the distribution will be centripetal. That means it arises from the periphery and reaches to the center. While in uveitis, keratitis, and angle closure glaucoma, the congestion will be more around circumcorneal and that will be centrifugal. That means it arises from the center and reaches to the periphery. So this is important differentiating feature. But in some cases like corneal ulcer, there will be mixed type of inflammation, that is circumcorneal plus conjunctival. Why it is so? Because in that there will be keratitis component, uveitis component associated with superficial inflammation. So that's why we'll see mixed congestion in case of corneal ulcer. So now let's move on to the second point, that is type of discharge. We'll understand it in four main type of conjunctivitis, that is viral, chlamydial or trichoma, bacterial, and allergic conjunctivitis. To understand this, we need to understand three key concepts. That is, what is the primary response of conjunctiva in each infective organism and allergens? So, virus and chlamydia are intracellular organism that will elicit lymphocytic or T cell mediated immune response. Bacteria are extracellular organism that will elicit neutrophilic response, and allergens will release mast cells. Okay. Now, second point is what is the mechanism of action of each immune cells. Lymphocytes are cytotoxic. Neutrophils will release proteolytic enzymes and mast cell will release histamine. And what type of discharge each cell will produce. This is the key concept that we need to understand. Now, when conjunctival epithelial cells are infected by virus or chlamydia, that will elicit lymphocytic response. So when lymphocyte comes, it kills only the infected cells. It will not stimulate adjacent goblet cell or it will not kill adjacent epithelial cells. So particular infected cell will only be killed. So no lateral damage will be done. And apart from that, we know in inflammation there will be vasodilatation. So vasodilatation will cause plasma leak that will cause chemosis and serous discharge. So in virus and chlamydia, there will be serous discharge. Here is the twist. Chlamydia is a chronic infection. Chlamydia infection will also irritate adjacent epithelial and goblet cells. Okay, so that goblet cell stimulation will release mucin or mucus. Okay, so chlamydial infection will have scanty mucoid discharge. It will not stimulate goblet cells in excess, but just adjacent goblet cells are getting stimulated. So there will be scanty mucoid discharge. Now, bacteria. Bacteria are extracellular organism that will elicit neutrophilic response. Neutrophils will release proteolytic enzymes. This proteolytic enzyme will kill infected cells, adjacent goblet cell stimulation, and neutrophil itself will also get degraded. So, in bacterial infection, there will be vasodilatation plus goblet cell stimulation that will cause mucus secretion and dead neutrophils and epithelial cells that will form pus. We have learned in pathology that pus is nothing but the dead neutrophils and epithelial cells, debris. So, bacterial infection will have mucopurulent discharge. Now, allergens will stimulate mast cell that will release histamine, which will cause extensive vasodilatation. It will cause extensive goblet cell stimulation. So, apart from serous discharge, mucus component will also add on. So that will call frank mucoid, ropey, or stringy discharge. When we touch the discharge with two fingers and spread our fingers, it will have string formation. So that's why it's called stringy discharge. Okay. So to summarize, allergy will cause frank mucoid, ropey, or stringy discharge. Bacteria will cause mucopurulent discharge. Chlamydia, scanty mucoid. Virus will cause serous discharge. So this is the pictorial representation of the whole concept. Bacterial infection, neutrophil response, proteolytic enzymes that will cause damage epithelium and dead neutrophils that will cause mucopurulent discharge. Virus and chlamydia, T cell mediated immunity, kill infected cells, serous discharge plus lymphoid follicles. This we'll see later. Allergens like pollen will cause mast cell stimulation, histamine and cytokine release that will cause goblet cell stimulation that will cause ropey mucoid discharge. So now let's move on to the third part of video, that is conjunctival reaction. For that we need to understand the basic histology of conjunctiva. Epithelial cell layer, this is the goblet cells, this is the subepithelial layer, this is adenoid layer. Adenoid layer will have lymphocytes and germinal center, and beneath that is the fibrovascular layer. So now we all know that virus and chlamydia will have mainly lymphocytic response. So when lymphocytes get stimulated, this germinal center will have lymphocyte hyperplasia. So they will have adenoid layer hyperplasia. So it is called as follicles. Now we can see here the vessels are running between these germinal centers. So when adenoid layer will get hyperplasia, the vessels will be between them and not within it. Okay, so that is the important point to remember. And as this lymphocyte layer is only getting hyperplasia, it will have translucent color. So how it looks clinically? So this is how it looks clinically: multiple discrete slightly elevated translucent lesions. Okay, and they are mainly seen in a fornacial conjunctiva. Why it is so? Because this fornacial conjunctiva and this palpebral conjunctiva will have properly formed adenoid layer. Bulbar conjunctiva have only thin layer of adenoid layer. Okay, so that's why the fornacial conjunctiva will predominantly have this follicular reaction. Now we'll move on to the papillae. What is papillae? So when allergic and bacterial infection occurs, as we all know, there will be mast cell and neutrophil infiltration. So these vessels will get dilated and it will reach here, okay, to provide mast cell and neutrophils. They will get recruited here, and as a result of that there will be hypertrophy of this subepithelial region. Cell will run like this and there will be cellular infiltration. So as we know, there will be fibrovascular core in case of papillae. If we see it from the top, it will look pinkish in color. Papillae will look pinkish in color. So this is how it looks clinically. As we can see, they are pinkish in color. Okay, they are pinkish in color and mosaic like pattern. So now, if the papillae are greater than 1 mm, that is called as a giant papillae, and they are mainly seen in palpebral conjunctiva and bulbar conjunctiva. Why we are distinguishing papillae is giant papillae but not follicles into giant follicles? This is the important question, because the presence of follicle itself is a pathognomic. Bigger the papillae, the intense the inflammation and infection. Okay, so for that we are dividing papillae into micro, macro, and giant papillae, but not the follicles. Now, as I told you, there will be limbal papillae. But as we know from the previous thing, that limbal conjunctival vessels will be deeply situated. Okay, so they will not have that prominent fibrovascular core. So they will mainly seem like a translucent and gelatinous appearance. Limbal papillae with this apical white cellular deposit, what we are seeing here, is called as a Horner Trantas dot, and it is seen mainly in VKC. Now we'll see how to diagnose conjunctivitis and its type in OPD with just 3 points. First, we have to look at the location and color of inflammation, whether it's a conjunctival, circumcorneal, or mixed. What's the type of discharge? Serous, mucoid, ropey, or mucopurulent? And what is the type of conjunctival reaction? Follicles or papillae? So, to remember it in very brief, you just have to remember ABC virus. ABC viral, allergic, bacterial, chlamydial, and viral. Remember the type of discharge and the conjunctival reaction. First two will have papillae, while last two will have follicles. You can remember it like that. ABC viral, first two will have papillary reaction, last two will have follicles, and the discharge you can remember it with logic. You can screenshot this image and remember it forever. And now we'll move on to the self assessment part. Case number 1, patient is having congestion at inferior palpebral and fornical conjunctiva with papillary conjunctival reaction, and the type of discharge is mucopurulent. So you tell me in the comments what type of conjunctivitis patient has. Case number 2, patient is having conjunctival congestion and macropapillae in the upper palpebral conjunctiva, limbal papillae, and this type of discharge. So, tell me in the comment section what type of conjunctivitis this patient is having. Thank you for your time and patient listening. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, goodbye and happy learning.